Clock, so we'll get started. I'll open the meeting and advise everyone that we are video streaming this meeting at the moment, so it's live streamed on the City of Hobart YouTube channel. And just if I can request that your mobile devices are turned off or put to silent, and for the purposes of recording, elected members should wait until I've announced them before speaking. We have all elected members present except for Councillor Coates, who's an apology just at this stage but is expected later in the meeting. So there's no leave of absences. Acknowledgement to country. In recognition of the deep history and culture of this place, I wish to acknowledge that we are meeting on the land of the Milwanina people. I acknowledge the determination and resilience of the Palawa people of Tasmania, who have survived invasion and dispossession and continue to maintain their identity, culture and rights. I recognise the value of continuing Aboriginal knowledge and cultural practice and pay my respects to elders past and present. So the minutes of our last meeting were on 22 March, moved by Deputy Lord Mayor, seconded by Councillor Dutta. Is there any changes to the minutes? There being none, I'll put that. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against say no. That's carried unanimously. Would anyone like to transfer any of the agenda items on the open or the closed? Where they are. That's good. We'll move on. Communications from the Chair. I do have a communication which is that tonight is the final council meeting for our General Manager, Nick Heath, who will farewell the organisation next Friday, the 9th of April, after more than 36 years of service to this council, and the last 12 of those is as General Manager. Nick commenced his career at council in 1984 and then he moved in 1998 into the management ranks as Manager of Executive Services. He held the position of Director of Executive Management until 2008, when he succeeded the previous General Manager into the role. I think I speak on behalf of everyone to say that Nick's professional performance has been outstanding, and there are many things of his past 12 years in particular that he's very proud of. He is the key link between elected members and the administration and all of the staff of the council, and this is such an important role, and we've all really appreciated the work that Nick has done. He's earned the respect of all of the elected members for his professionalism and sound advice. So as part of marking Nick's retirement, I would like to invite any elected members who would like to say a few words to do so now. For around about 2 to 3 minutes would be great. And I'll just open the floor to who would ever like to speak.
Lord Mayor, I'll start. I've probably been here, everyone knows I've been here the longest. I actually arrived here when Nick was working here. Unfortunately, he wasn't a very good Hutchins footballer. That's where I first sort of came across him. And again, unfortunately, he supports the side that I absolutely loathe in the Hawks. So we sort of had some issues from the start in regards to our sporting sort of backgrounds. Like anything, with any general manager or any person in a position that manages an organisation as big as the council, you have your times over the journey. Nick and I have had our times, but in doing so, I think we both knew that our focus was on what was the best interest of the City of Hobart. That's one of the things that Nick never lost sight of, and I've got to say we respected each other in that way, because the focus was always on the city. And I think that if you really listen to what Nick had to say last night about some of his highlights, there were some of those highlights, and I won't mention any in particular, which actually sort of came back to not haunt the city, but there was some quite contentious debate, media attention in those matters, but they were significant in the city and the future of the city. And I think that some of those things and some of those decisions that had to be made over the years, whether we liked them, whether we didn't like them, I think the advice that we got from the General Manager and our staff was and always has been for the best interest of the city. So sometimes we have to sit back and take a bit of a hit in the media, whether it's good, bad or indifferent. But I think Nick highlighted that last night, and I think that was something that I felt quite touched that Nick focused on, because I think that's what it's all about. It's all about our city and the big picture, and I think Nick and his team over the years have demonstrated that. Mind you, he did have a very good mentor, and his mentor was here last night, which was good to see as well. And I think that demonstrates, to my point of view, the transitional aspects of what's happened with the organisation over a period of time, where we've had past staff, current staff and future staff sort of progressing on. I do hope that whatever Nick does in the future, he'll no doubt be successful with, but I just hope he's not successful with his Hawks. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Briscoe.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Now, I started doing notes, but we started too quickly. So I've got a few notes here. No, I haven't. They've all gone off. I'll do the same thing as Alderman Zuko, talk straight from the heart. Last night was brilliant. It was like the ghost of councils past. And I'm sure there'll be other events there where we'll see Nick celebrating with other former council officers. Now, we often think as elected members, we're the ones who come up with the innovative ideas and the great ideas for the city and implement them. But my experience as the second longest serving elected member of the council after Alderman Zuko, I find that it's the officers that lead us, and very skillfully lead us, that we think that we're doing all the great ideas. In fact, their great ideas come to us in forms of reports, and often with a lot of diplomacy and a lot of skill in framing the reports. And we've got to thank Nick as a representative of the organisation. He's managed to do that with skill and ability and experience. And so as you walk around the city, I can see things that the council have done. We say the council have done, the council elected members haven't done, it's the officers of the council have done. I've shared at least one trip with Nick. I can't remember which one it was. Maybe it was the sister city, the 40 years of the sister city relationship. And you saw a different side of Nick there, and very relaxed, which I hope he'll be doing the next few years. I perhaps shouldn't say that, but he's put in a small pool down at the shack at South Arm, and he'll be enjoying that with his wife. Let's hope the COVID crisis pandemic is under control by this time he gets in his car and drives from Port Douglas down south. But I do sincerely thank, and I will miss the late night, sometimes the weekends, talks, Nick to Jeff. Oh, what are we going to do about this, Nick? Oh, please tell us what to do, or vice versa. So I will miss them, but I'm sure we'll come across each other around this trap. So thank you very much, Nick, and on behalf of me and my supporters that have elected me for a number of years, they've always said good things about you.
Okay.
Sexton. Sorry.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Look, I concur with the Lord Mayor and her comments on Mr Heath's professionalism and commitment to the city. And I congratulate Mr Heath on his tenure as General Manager and, of course, his role as the City Solicitor prior to that. In the 20 plus years that I've known Mr Heath in this council, I think we've shared many interesting times, some of which were enjoyable. Among the many accomplishments that Mr Heath can lay claim to, perhaps one of his more notable and perhaps one of the ones that I've often marvelled at, is his innate ability to manage the unmanageable. and I'm referring to both issues and people there. And I'm sure that that's a valuable asset that many people will want to use your skills for in the future, Nick. You will be missed, and I wish you all the best for the future. I hope to see you around the city from time to time, and we may even have opportunities to work with one another again. If so, I look forward to it.
Thomas.
Yeah, look, there's probably lots to be said about this guy, but effectively professional, reliable, trustworthy, and someone that gave his all to this council over so many years. I first met Nick, I was in the City Solicitor's office in Brisbane Council, so when I came down here and was Crown Solicitor of Tasmania, I sought out Nick and we met. And then after that, as Ombudsman, I met Nick and the former GM, obviously trying to influence my decisions, but that didn't matter. It was a lunch. But realistically, it was my time as Lord Mayor that I think was probably the most significant. And the year before that, when this council was faced with making very hard decisions, we were faced with a situation, I will name it up, that had the rat infested, which I'm glad we're now honestly saying it was rat infested, Myers site not being recovered to a second level Myers store, we were going to lose 2,500 jobs in the city. Now, 2,500 jobs amounted to hundreds of millions of dollars, but it actually would have gutted the city, and what we would have had now would have been just a symbolic set of buildings to what we had. So we spent several months under Lord Mayor Valentine listening to a range of experts, and there were experts that had sussed out and programmed the amount of the loss the city was going to suffer. And there were people who came in this chamber after that time who said, I would never have done that. And then realistically, they didn't know the circumstances, Lord Mayor at the time. And if we hadn't have had frank and fearless advice from Nick and his expert team, we could have made a decision that would have left us as a very bereft capital city. We would not have had a Myers. It was a huge effort to go through what happened at that time. It wasn't just Myers, it was Ali Sultan who was prepared to make a deal with, what are they, the telco? Vodafone. That meant that we snared 600 or 700 workers from Kingborough into Hobart, and that again led to the vibrancy which was then ultimately taken over by the university. It's decisions of that time that stand this city in the position it's in today. And without doubt, without a gutsy, reliable, very appropriately organised general manager, we couldn't have got to where we got to. And it is true, as Alderman Briscoe said, 24/7 almost availability. And somebody once said, the way you leave an organisation is really telling. A lot of people, when they're about to go, they get into the departure lounge. Don't listen to this, Alderman Barakas. Or Councillor Coates. They get into the departure lounge, and they're basically working at half pace. This guy has not done any of that, and I knew he wouldn't. Working right to the end, and that's why I really implore you, if you've got the worst, dirtiest, horrible questions to ask tonight, please ask them. There's only 3 items to do it in. But Nick, thank you for your assistance to me and to what you've done for our beautiful city. Thank you.
Councillor Harvey.
Look, I'd just like to wish you all the best in your retirement, whatever that might be, and I'm sure you won't retire, but you'll be doing other things. But I've appreciated your support over the in my time on council. I think that's been really important to me, being a good alderman or trying to be a good alderman, you know, to know that there's someone I can trust, whose advice I can trust, and who can ring me up and tell me, you know, frankly, what I need to know, or when I offer my notices of motions and things, you know, beforehand. Get that important advice to make sure you're on the money rather than putting something forward that's a bit amiss. But I do appreciate that you've had a really steady hand on this council, and that's a good thing, not a criticism about, you know, controlling us, but I think that steady hand has been really, really valuable, and I think we've all appreciated that. But I think one of the moments here is knowing how to retire, and I'd like to know how to retire as well. So at some point, yep, that's right. You've got to make that decision, and we all should be making the decision of, you know, when have we had enough? When do we all step down? And you've got to step down for the right reasons, you know. But you don't want to be pushed out the door, you know. So you need to know what's going on.
You can help me do that, Bill.
But what I'd like to focus on though now is going back to 2007 when I started. You know those screens you get on the internet, you can slide them across and you see the change? I'd really like to have one of those screens for when you started, to be able to slide it across and see what you've achieved as part of this council, and be able to slide it backwards and forwards so you can actually see the change. Because when you're living it, you don't see it. But when you go back and revisit it, that's when you really notice things. You know, we had a waterfront full of cars forever. And now when you walk down there, we have a completely different waterfront, but you can't remember what it was like previously without, you know, sliding things across. So I hope you can go back through your slides, you know, and think about all the things that you have helped achieve for this town. I think it's an immense achievement. Good luck.
Alderman Brackus.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. And look, I was actually, just to jump off something that Alderman Thomas said, I was actually challenged by Nick to make this council meeting as hairy as possible, just to make him work for his last meeting. But look, in all seriousness, I think the number of people and the range of different people that we saw at last night's function, I think, was a testament to the number of people that Nick's touched and the number of people that have a tremendous amount of respect for Nick and the work that he's put in. I think, as Councillor Harvey said, I think the best time to stop is when people are still left wanting more of you rather than the other way around. And I think there are still people that genuinely value your contribution. That genuinely value the contributions that you make. I think the General Manager has been a steady hand for this council and a steady hand for the city. I think he's been especially during testing times. We've had some very, very testing times recently with COVID, as well as the testing times that we had over a decade ago that's already been referred to. I wasn't involved with the council at that time. I think I was about 17 years old when that was all happening for the record. But and I think just as importantly, he's been a tremendous source of guidance for a young upstart alderman such as myself that's trying to make it up as I go along. I think most people would agree that the debates in the council can be sometimes a little bit robust, and I think the relationships between elected members can sometimes be tested and get a little bit hairy. I think one of the things that Nick's done an exemplary job at is managing the relationships and conducting himself in the role of the General Manager with the utmost balance. Sometimes that balance means that I'm happy with how he's done what he said, and sometimes that means that I'm not happy with how he's done things, and that probably means that it's fair. I think the city, the council, I think the organisation are all better off for the time that Nick has spent, both in the organisation, especially as General Manager. I think the new General Manager or CEO was going to have very, very big boots to fill. I think Nick has done the perfect job of being that bridge between the organisation and the elected members, because that's, I think, one of the important things. The amount of times that we come up with whatever kooky decisions that we come up with in this room, and Nick's the one that makes sure that it all gets implemented in a way that's practical and in a way that respects the wishes of this chamber. So, look, I'll miss all of our chats. I'll miss all of your frank advice. The amount of times that I've done something or said something or asked him something, and I'll get a phone call from Nick, and Nick just says, "What's the game plan here exactly, mate?" And maybe I should consider what I'm doing. So look, I appreciate all of that, and I'll hope that we continue to remain connected as friends in the future. I look forward to catching up for a beer with the civilian Nick Heath and hearing all of his wild stories. I'm sure we've all got some stories to share some lovely embarrassing stories of Nick, but maybe not for maybe
I've got
not
them all
for tonight.
recorded, don't worry.
But look, congratulations on your time, mate, and all the best with the retirement. You've definitely earned it.
Oh, Councillor Sherlock.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. Look, I won't be too long, but I do just want to say, Nick, thank you very much. It's been really nice knowing you. I think I've known you for obviously the amount of time that I've been on council, which has been the half the time that I've been back in Tasmania. And I think similar to what Alderman Barakas said, you're always very measured. You're always very considered in the way that you approach all of us. And I think that that is a really, really unique quality about you. And more great leaders really should aspire to that. Yesterday, as Alderman Barakas pointed out, the room was filled with eclectic people from various different ideologies, walks of life, very diverse backgrounds, and I think that is a reflection of what a genuine person you are. I think for me last night, looking at the faces of your family, they have clearly been a strength to you. They've been your support. Looking at your mum, and as she was smiling when you were saying the speech, she's clearly proud of the boy and the man she has raised. So well done to you. You're a remarkable character. I do recall having conversations with you that vary from, oh, Nick, what's this about? What's this advice? Can you please tell me about this process and this procedure? To sitting with you while you ate soup and just having a conversation, to sitting with you and you passing me a tissue as I cried over different things in my personal life. So you have always been that person that I think I could go to in this particular arena, and you should be really proud of yourself. And I think when you walk around this city, I think you'll see reflections of you everywhere. So be really proud of yourself and what you have achieved. Thank you so much.
The Coates.
What an innings. God, not many people stay in for that long. Obviously, it was roughly halfway through they selected you as captain, but you know, they do say sometimes that's a curse in terms of player performance. But I think, judging by the your past teammates that turned up last night, not only have you been a captain, but you've played the straight bat, you've stayed in, and you've hit runs. And boy, yeah, you've got some runs on the board. I mean, if you think about it as a city, we've heard obviously tonight about the mine fire, about the scenario it was in. Obviously this last year in some ways was, I don't know if you call that a Yorker or an offer or a spinner or something, but whatever it was, it came out of outer space and sort of hit the organisation. But you've remained the captain of a team, you've remained playing your straight bat, doing the strokes, getting the runs on the board, and keeping the ship in order. And look, in some ways I think being a captain or being the general manager is the most lonely job, and you can make enemies. You're the one that decides ultimately who's on and off the team. Sometimes you've got to make decisions and make calls that aren't popular, either with the supporters or the other team members. But you've done an exemplary job. I think that was shown, as been noted by the people that turned up last night. And in the short year that I've worked with you, my first ever meeting in your office once I was elected, you said to me that I'm now on a team and you're there to support me and help me, and I think you've done that, you've done an exemplary job of that, and that is what a proper captain should do. And so look, I know that this innings is coming to an end, but I remind you, you've still got a whole other innings to go, and I look forward to seeing the pursuits that you'll take up and the things you'll do, and I have full confidence that whatever it is that you decide now you'll take to it with gusto and do it properly. But boy, oh boy, I think your name will be up in the halls, and people will look back and say, he was a good job, he played well. So there you go, congratulations.
Further contributions? Councillor Dutta.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I want to begin by saying that I relate to the 36 years. I relate to that particular number because it's 36 years since I migrated to this beautiful country and to this beautiful city. So that is a commonality that we share. I would want to leave 3 points because if I go on, you might forget all what I'm going to say, but let me just make 3 points. Point number 1, a personal phone call. Before the election results came out, Nick called me and said, Mike, congratulations. And I said, about what? He said, I think you are in. And I said, what do you mean? I'm still hanging there. I don't think I'll make it. He said, no, looking at the way things are going, I think you'll be in. And I want to congratulate you, and I think we should start preparing. And it was the first time in my life I received a phone call from a general manager of an organization. So I was humbled to receive that phone call and encouraged with the congratulations that you gave me. I appreciated that very much. Point number 2, in my nearly 2.5+ years that I've been here on this council, they are your personal qualities I have admired. Your personal qualities of being friendly, courteous, compassionate, understanding, tolerant. And regardless of the things that go around, and it's sometimes quite heated, you are able to display that particular wonderful personal qualities of yours. And I want to thank you for that. Point number 3 is the professionalism that you bring to your role and the way you have conducted yourself. There has always been, in my view, that objectivity. Even though we come to you with our own biasness at times, you are able to lead us to look at things in a more objective way. And I remember one day you said quite clearly, and it made a lot of sense to me, Mike, it's about personal relationship with people, it's not about politics. And I think the way you have guided, the way you have diplomatically executed your duties, the way you have showed cooperation, and to me, your independent stance and your non-biasness has been a great example for me as a professional person. In conclusion, let me say this to you. This chapter closes for you. A new chapter will begin. And I look forward with great anticipation to see what the new chapter you will write. Close of new horizon and the rising of a new dawn. Thank you so much and wish you all the best.
Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Nick, I'd like also to add my thanks to your guidance, your frank and fearless advice over the 16 years that I've been on council. I feel like crying now. It's, 36 years is an amazing length of service to the public, and I know how important that has been to you over the years. I know that this organisation has meant your world, apart from your family who have been there every step of the way. And it was great to see your boys and Andrea and your mum there last night celebrating your time here. We have knocked on your doors, sent emails at 5 minutes to midnight for notices of motion on Sunday night so that they get in. You have, I was the only one, really. Through flood, fire and now pestilence, you have been there and ready to take our call. And as Mike said, it's been this amazing unflappability, really. You've been so professional in how you have treated us right the way through. And I've certainly appreciated that. I've learnt a lot from your years of service in the role. And I think over the time that I've seen the council mature and change, there has been this real change from councils just being road rates and rubbish, and a real estimation of what we really do. So it's not just about roads, it's about our public infrastructure and the public domain. It's about what we do for our communities, and I really appreciate that's been your legacy as you've been here. So you've, as the council and the organisation has grown, I think you've been at the helm and done an amazing job. So I'd like to thank you, and I wish you all the best in your next pursuits. I know that you won't be far away, and the city will always be in your mind, but I do wish you well and to enjoy your next chapter. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I got to have a say last night, so I won't say anything much in addition, but just to reflect on all the wonderful contributions that you've heard from the elected members, just a really diverse range of perspectives. But I think at the heart of all of our admiration and respect for you, Nick, is that you are a very easygoing person that is down to earth and is professional but very approachable. And it's not very often that we see Nick without. You might be worried about all sorts of things. You do have a lot of pressure on you as a general manager, but you've always come across as a person who's quite optimistic and friendly, and that makes a difference, because managing a city and being involved in politics is stressful, and also being responsible, in your case, for all of the staff and the complexities of running a city. It can be very draining and very hard, and so I really respect that sunny outlook that you've got, and that's something that I will always remember. But I don't think I need to add any more, except again to say, thank you for your service to us as a council, to all the previous elected members, but most importantly to the citizens of Hobart. You're a bit behind the scenes, and they may not know you in the way that they might know elected members, but your role in creating such a great city that everybody loves has been really fundamental in the past few decades. So thank you once again, and enjoy the next chapter.
Lord Mayor, I might, just for the record, move that we have a vote of thanks for the work that the General Manager, Mr Nick Heath, has done, and suggest that we do that by acclamation.
Nick would like to say just a few. Mr Heath would like to say a few words.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. To now, I've been quite in control of my emotions. It is a sad time for me, but hearing those really kind words tonight does invoke some emotion. It's a sad time, but a happy time for me. So it's those mixed emotions, I suppose, you go through. But look, I am terribly humbled by the kind words tonight. As I said last night, I really do value the fantastic support that I get from you as elected members, from the Lord Mayor. And look, I think it's also important to recognise on nights like tonight from previous Lord Mayors and previous councils as well. Like, you can't do 12 and a half years in this job without sort of making sure that you have the support of all councils and all elected members, and I'm extremely grateful for that. Look, I've always been conscious of the tremendous honour it is to be GM of this great council. It's a long history that we have as a council, going back over 170 years, and in that time there's only been 16 general managers. You've just appointed a 17th general manager, so I'm extremely aware of the custodial responsibilities that there is in being a general manager of this great council, and I suppose in that sense I feel like my job is to take the council that I had 12 and a half years ago and hand it on just one little bit better than it was when I inherited it, and I hope that's the case, and I hope you feel that's the case. I think what's made it easier for me as GM is that we're all committed to one thing, and I think you've all talked about it. It's the community of Hobart. What brings us together in this chamber, what brings us into this office every day as council officers, is we have a common goal. That's to make the community better, and I really do think that's held us in good stead as we've been through some of those decisions and some of those matters that we've talked about tonight and last night. I think it's also important to acknowledge that you guys, the council, have provided me with mentoring, counselling, support. I did talk last night too about the concept of bravery, and I don't think that gets talked about enough in local government circles. But over the years, I've seen this council make some really brave decisions, right decisions, brave decisions, hard decisions, but always at the core of that decision-making process was our commitment to the city and this organisation. But above all of that, above all of it, I will honour your friendships. I think that's been the most important thing that's been able me to do my job and get through difficult situations. Yes, we've had hard conversations. Yes, we've had some tough conversations. Yes, we've had some difficult issues to deal with. But the friendships have maintained through it, and that's all underpinned by the huge concept of trust. Trust has built the friendships that we have around this table, and I do ask you as a legacy gift, please keep being brave as a council, keep putting the best wishes of our community first, and I know you will. So, look, Lord Mayor, on a night like tonight as well, I think it's remiss of me not to thank the executive leadership team and the staff. A couple of you around the table have alluded to it. They have made me look good, and that's saying something. They are a fantastic team, a committed team, give advice without fear or favour, and I've been so privileged over the last 12 and a half years to be their general manager, their CEO. As I said, they've made me look good. So all the things you've said tonight about me, ipso facto, you're saying about the staff. So, Lord Mayor, in conclusion, I know we've got to get on with the meeting. We've got a meeting to get on with and do the business. This is my 293rd council meeting that I am participating in. So I very much look forward to a civil meeting, Lord Mayor, with no points of order and no procedural motions and no whatevers, shadowed motions. So let's get on with the business. Come on, let's get on with it. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
So with that, we'll move on to item number 4, which is notification of council workshops. We did have a workshop on the 23rd of March, which was our second budget briefing for the budget for 21-22, and there were 11 elected members in attendance. Is there any public question time? And no questions from the floor? No, and no petitions? Good. And we've got no supplementary items. Would any elected members wish to indicate an interest in an item appearing on the open council agenda, Deputy Lord Mayor?
Yes, item 11, Lord Mayor.
Item 11 for Deputy Lord Mayor. Any others?
Yes, look, as a White Ribbon ambassador, I should move out of the room for that session number 10, I mean.
Okay. So we're now moving on to the council acting as a planning authority, and I'll invite Deputy Lord Mayor to introduce item 9.1, which is 15 Beechworth Road, Sandy Bay.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'll move this item in relation to this.
By Councillor Sherlock.
So, Lord Mayor, this is for partial demolition, alterations and extension at 15 Beechworth Road, Sandy Bay. So it's a house, and this came to us in a different guise some time ago, or actually didn't. I think it didn't actually get to committee because there were some concerns, so it was withdrawn and altered. But essentially, it's an extension through to the back part of the house and an upper storey. The modifications in the development application meant that this fell within the building envelope, so it doesn't mean that we can consider as part of the application those things such as overshadowing and impacts of necessarily of privacy in relation to the neighbours. So it falls within the building envelopes, and we know with this current planning regime, it means that we cannot consider those things. So a lot of the concerns that were brought up in the representations, which were around amenity, this application really falls silent. And whilst we have a very short agenda in a planning sense, you'll note that this has very few conditions in relation to it because we're only really considering it from a stormwater perspective. There is an inundation code, or inundation is considered in relation to this application as well. It's right near Long Beach in Sandy Bay, and was that Long Beach? No, that's Nutgrove Beach. Sorry, Nutgrove Beach. But given the application is accommodating any sort of stormwater surge or inundation surge, then it seems to be conditioned well enough.
Okay. Any discussion? No discussion. I'll put that. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against say no. Carried unanimously. Item 10, Alderman Thomas.
Thank you.
So item 10 is a motion from Councillor Sherlock on the White Ribbon Workplace Accreditation, and I'll hand over to Councillor Sherlock.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. I suppose everybody has probably taken the time to read the appendix and the various different things that's in the motion there, but just to recap.
Is there a seconder for the motion? Councillor Harvey.
An overview is that the White Ribbon was taken over by the Communicare organisation. We had Brad Chilcott, the new Executive Director, come and speak to us about the various different things that the organisation has changed. But this particular accreditation program works as a standard with a number of items an organisation provides evidence against. The program is not aimed at celebrating the White Ribbon Australia brand. However, it is instead about the policies, the regulations and how effective they are, like the sexual harassment policy, family violence leave and other supports, and also incorporates the culture of gender equality in an organisation. The program supports organisations to respond to and prevent violence against women, whether it occurs inside or outside the organisation, through supporting women experiencing violence, holding perpetrators to account, supporting all employees to challenge inappropriate behaviour, and strengthening gender equality within the broader community. And I'll just put that motion. Thank you very much, Lord Mayor.
Alderman Briscoe.
Look, it's a timely motion, Lord Mayor. I know the old White Ribbon organisation collapsed with a huge amount of debt, and I was working for an organisation that had sought White Ribbon accreditation, and quite a lot of resources went into it. I think they had the Education Department of Tasmania had 4 staff working on White Ribbon workplace accreditation. Whether they achieved it, I just can't recall. But when White Ribbon, the previous organisation, did collapse, the Department of Education moved to another organisation, which I cannot find the name of it, but they don't use White Ribbon as a workplace accreditation for their the same sorts of aims as that Councillor Sherlock has put in her motion. So I was wondering, without changing the motion, whether the officers who write the report just survey organisations which are equivalent to White Ribbon that organisations in the Tasmanian government may use, or other companies. So can I just have assurance that that will be done through you, Lord Mayor?
Mr. Heath.
On the record, Lord Mayor, Alderman Briscoe can have that assurance.
Thank you very much. And look, we've seen what's happened in in federal parliament and other parliaments. It seems like day by day there is another scandal released and people resign here and there. I don't think we've got a culture of that here, and we've said really nice things about the General Manager, but we've had some really good leaders, including the General Manager, and I think of Heather as the Deputy, and I think the policies in this council are very robust. When I first got elected to council, there was a dreadful sexual assault in our parks area, and that threw up all sorts of issues in the Parks Department that had to be addressed throughout the whole organisation. And I think what I have seen in this organisation, there are some very good policies and practices in place. So when you do, when the report is written, because I'm going to support it, then perhaps that should be alluded to, what policies that have got in place and whether we do need to make sure that they're up to date and all that jazz, and I'm sure they are, because I don't think we ever want to get to the situation other levels of government are in at the present moment. And I don't think that we have or will, but we've just got to make sure there are robust procedures and policies in place, so if it does arise, that people are treated properly.
Further discussion?
Could I just ask a question through you to Councillor Sherlock, just in relation to I mean, this looks purely at women, but is it looking at people who are also, you know, LGBTI as part of this?
Thank you very much, Deputy Lord Mayor. Yes, I'm assuming that the officers will give us an in-depth report that does cover that. Thank you.
Further discussion? No further discussion. Councillor Sherlock, did you want to sum up at all?
No, thank you very much, Lord Mayor.
All right, I'll put that. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against say no. Carried unanimously. Item 11 is the City Infrastructure Committee.
Declare an interest.
Oh yeah, sorry, we're calling in Alderman Thomas and Deputy Lord Mayor is leaving. So this is item 11, request to vary council policy, permanent private signage on highway reservation Hewan Road, and it'll be introduced by Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'll move the item.
Second by, I think it was Councillor Sherlock.
Lord Mayor, the recommendation, and I will read the full recommendation, that one, the strong commitment in the City of Hobart Capital City Strategic Plan 2019 to 2029 to celebrate and support Tasmanian Aboriginal community, heritage and culture, and to invite people to engage with Tasmanian Aboriginal history and culture be noted. 2, the council policy permanent private signage on highways reservation be waived for the purpose of considering the application for the retention of the always was, always will be sign erected on the street tree on Hewan Road at Pillinger Drive in Ferntree. 3, the General Manager be authorised to issue an annual permit under the Public Spaces bylaw for the retention of the always was, always will be sign and to issue the permit on an annual basis as deemed appropriate. Part 4, in the event that the permit is issued, it be issued for the initial annual fee of $100 as listed in the 2021 approved fees and charges and subject to future adjustment as part of the fees and charges process. So I think there's really 2 points I'd like to make that this does demonstrate, further demonstrate our commitment to our various strategies within the council, the Hobart City Council Strategic Plan, but also our Aboriginal commitment and action plan. And I'll just read some points from the Aboriginal commitment and action plan. The key themes and areas of action identified through in-depth engagement and consultation in developing the plan include building relationships and working partnerships with Aboriginal people, building a culturally safe workplace and increased understanding and respect, raising the profile of Aboriginal people, heritage and culture across the city and sharing the truth of history, and demonstrating leadership in social justice and inclusion in partnerships with the Aboriginal people. So I think what this proposal or this motion tonight does, it really aligns well with both our strategic plan and our community, our Aboriginal commitment and action plan. And it was argued at the committee that this will open the floodgates or set a precedent for other organisations to want to put banners on council land in contravention or ask for exemptions in the same way that this has with the signage strategy or the signage policy. but I don't think we could compare other organisations to the Aboriginal culture in Hobart. This is something special. This is something that the council works hard in building a relationship. So I'm cautious that we can't compare this with other potential requests to do something similar. So I think I'm really keen to see this banner stay and for us to support this motion, because it really does align with the things that we've talked about for a long time. And we have an Aboriginal flag flying out the front, out the back here. We're promoting Aboriginal artwork now in council. We have a whole lot of strategies and actions that we're trying to achieve. And I think this is a great form of, it could be called public art as well. But I think it's great recognition, and it's in a great location, and I think it does serve a really strong purpose, and it really aligns with what we're trying to achieve as a council when it comes to our work with the Aboriginal community.
Alderman Briscoe.
Yes, look, I support this. I saw it a few months ago. Every time I've taken a trip up to the mountain, I thought, how did they manage to get a permit for that, not realising they didn't have a permit. I think it adds a bit of colour. The political message is a political message. It could mean anything. We probably know what it means locally, but most people will look at it as an interesting sign and think about it. I doubt whether anyone would spend $100 a year to have a sign in other places, so I think this is a one-off. I do notice that there are signs to do with some development we're not allowed to talk about still around on various properties around town, and we haven't pursued them because temporary signs are not allowed under our planning scheme, but we haven't pursued them because as soon as you pursue them, it's a political action. I don't know how this has got to the council, but I think I don't think we should stop free speech, and particularly in this issue as well, because it's fairly sensitive these days. But always was, always will be, can mean a whole heap of things, and if we have the 400,000 or 500,000 visitors that go up the mountain every year, think about that, what it means. I think that's a good thing.
Further discussion? Alderman Barkas.
Lord Mayor, just to make sure this meeting doesn't go too smoothly, as was challenged by the General Manager. Look, no, in all seriousness, and just noting what Councillor Harvey said, I think, and I appreciate the council's policy on Indigenous issues, but when we've talked about promoting Aboriginal, when we have promoted Aboriginal artwork, when we have the flag waving out just directly over there, every single time we've done that, it has been in line with our council policies, and I think, as was the opposite of what was alluded to by Councillor Harvey, if we consider this, that we're exempting or creating an exemption for this council policy, it's a council policy that exists for a reason. And I think, whilst we might agree, and I'm sure we all do agree on the sentiment behind the message on the sign, I think it does open things up to people testing the council. Well, can I put up this sign, and that being taken as either an endorsement of or a repudiation of the message of that sign. There's a lot of ways for us to promote Indigenous culture and Indigenous history, and I think it's important that we do it in line with our existing policies. I think this does just objectively open up the interpretation that the council's policy is this. However, that can always be tested, and that can always be open to the discretion. And I think it really risks, potentially politicising public space and public highway space for advertising for a number of different issues. Some of which the council might agree with, some of which the council might not agree with. So this isn't a disagreement with the message of the sign, but I don't think it's good policy for us to allow this. I think there's better ways for us to tell that story, and better ways for us to allow that story to be told. And I am worried that this does subject the council to a certain level of risk in that regard, because I think there will be people either in good faith or in bad faith to put forward things on, put forward, not similar, but put forward similar applications for different issues or political issues or social issues. And I think that's a conversation that sometimes the council might not want to have, but we might not be able to avoid if we've allowed this and set that precedent. So look, I won't be respectfully, I won't be supporting this. I'd be encouraging others not to support this. I think there are better ways of us going about promoting and telling those stories.
Alderman Zuko.
Well, I just want to make a statement first. One of my closest friends I went to school with at the age of 9 is a direct descendant of Dolly Dalrymple. They've been family friends of mine for many, many years, and we just had another reunion a few weeks ago. So my commitment to being associated with members of the Aboriginal community goes back to when I was a young boy at school. We remained friends with the whole family for many years. I fully support our strategic plan in respect of the Indigenous community, the heritage and culture. I supported the flag. I've supported just about everything that we have needed to do in respect of ensuring that this community is well regarded in this council. What I have concerns with here is that what we are doing is setting a little bit of a precedent that because we want to use the strategic plan of our work with the Indigenous community, we're allowing a sign to be given priority. That concerns me, and it sets a precedent. Would we have allowed this with any other organisation or any other person? I've got to say, I wonder if someone will test us with that down the track and how we would do it. Personally, I would have preferred us to do this in a better, far more professional manner, in reviewing the policy per se in a general sense across the board, across the spectrum. Now, if we look at this table, Lord Mayor, there are many people from very and varied cultural backgrounds and ethnic backgrounds. Now, if an organisation came to us with the same scenario of a sign from a cultural background, maybe Fijian background, maybe Italian, Greek or whatever have you, would we treat them in the same way? I'm sorry, I just cannot in any shape or form agree with the comments made that this could be considered a piece of public art. I'm sorry, it's not a piece of public art, it is a sign. Let's not try and twist it so we all feel better. The reality is it's a sign. The actual report says it's a sign, and if anyone wants to try and twist it to say it's a piece of art, they're trying to, what is the word? Put it over me. I'm not going to be put over on what is an actual sign. So, Lord Mayor, I cannot support this because I don't believe what we're doing here is being just to the Aboriginal community, because we're actually, to my point of view, doing what is called, we're doing a favour here. We want to be culturally sensitive. Yes, we should be culturally sensitive, but we should also treat each and every person who comes here with an application in the same way. Think of it this way. This is a matter, like, this is a planning matter and a policy matter. Could you imagine if an organisation came to us with a planning application, and because of some ethnic or Indigenous background, we decided, well, let's use the capital city strategic plan in respect of that planning application. Lord Mayor, I think we need to seriously consider. Thank you. We should be seriously needing to consider this matter justly and fairly for each and every person that we have in the city of Hobart. And as I said, my closest friend is a descendant of Dolly Dalrymple, so this has got nothing to do with the Aboriginal community at all.
Further discussion? Councillor Dutton.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Now, I would like to support this particular motion, this recommendation. I've heard of the arguments from both sides now, and it appears to me that we are looking at a sign. There is no question about it. It says very clearly a permanent private sign. Now, for me, when we have policies, we can always review policies. And that has come to us. As a council, we consider the facts given to us. And on that basis, I'm quite happy to go along with the recommendation to change that particular policy. I find it also quite different when we look at, secondly, the strategic plan. Nowhere in the strategic plan do I find, if I may use my own cultural background, Fiji Indians or Fijians. There is no mention of any other cultural groups. The focus is on the first peoples, indigenous people of this country, in the context of history and what has happened to them. From that perspective, for me, they are in a different category, and therefore they do demand from me to make a stand for this particular purpose. And for that reason, I think, when we talk about precedents or comparing other cultures, it does not match, because we're not comparing apples with apples. We may have come, as it were, to this country, as migrants, but their situation and their history has been totally different, and therefore I'm quite happy to support this. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Councillor Harvey, did you want to... Oh, Councillor Coates.
Look, I think a lot of us, a lot of people for a long time have done a lot of campaigning, but everyone gets treated equally and appropriately. I mean, I think in this instance, in some ways, we're spending a lot of time focusing on what their message is as opposed to what they actually did. I appreciate the comments by Jeff Briscoe where, at their discretion, sometimes council officers sort of turned a blind eye to little placards that people put up on their house on particular issues because it would be a political statement if the council got involved. But, I think in this instance, I take Councillor Dutter's comments where, if we're going to have a policy, we need to actually properly enforce it. I don't think this was someone on their little house putting up, a sign out the front or something that was relatively, I think in this case they knew what they were doing, they knew it wasn't allowed, and then they've sort of come to us to try and waive the policy. It wasn't even sort of a retrospective, they put up a shed or something and they just didn't realise that they needed permission. And so look, I can appreciate that they have every right to put forward this view. They have every right to maintain, if you like, a sign and a placard and protest. But I don't think that us as a council should be in any way looking to retrospectively sort of provide them with a way of keeping it. I mean, they did the wrong thing and I think they did it knowingly. The argument needs to be us changing our policy going forward, not going back and saying in this one instance we think that we're going to allow it. I mean, otherwise all that will happen is that highway will be full of signs. And so look, to me, I read this simply as a governance matter. We're not here to be popular all the time. We're here to make sure that the policies and procedures of a city are undertaken and that there's oversight. And look, while I can appreciate the view that they're putting forward, I think in this instance we actually have to look at it from a governance angle. And if something gets put on the side of our roads when it's not in accordance with the policies that we've passed, we need to actually take appropriate thing against it. And when they then apply and a motion gets put forward, we need to say, well, no, we can't treat you separately to everyone else. It has to be that everyone's equal before the council, and I'll be voting accordingly.
Okay, did you want to sum up, Councillor Harvey?
Just to say again, and it's repetitive, that it doesn't set a precedent. This is because we have policies that relate to the Aboriginal people of Tasmania. So it's not about allowing anybody to have a go at putting a sign up. So there's a bit of a strangeness about those arguments. This is a particular sign that represents something important to the First Nations people of Tasmania. It's not about anyone else who feels like it, could probably have one too. It's not about that. This is a particular sign for a specific reason and that aligns with our strategic documents. So I hope everybody, or I hope at least the majority of councillors and aldermen can support this tonight.
Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against say no.
Aye.
Show of hands. All those in favour.
Alderman Sexton, Councillor Harvey, Councillor Dutta, Councillor Sherlock, Councillor Ewan, Alderman Thomas, Alderman Briscoe and the Lord Mayor.
Against?
Alderman Zuko, Councillor Coates, Alderman Barakis.
Lord Mayor, it's carried 8 votes to 3.
Okay, now moving on to item... I'll get Deputy Lord Mayor back. And next up will be the Economic Development and Communications Committee, item 12. I'll invite Alderman Thomas to introduce this item about international relations update.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. I'll put the item on the books.
Seconded by Councillor Sherlock.
Thank you. Lord Mayor, this is still relatively a holding pattern in respect to international relations for obvious reasons. It does, however, foreshadow that officers will have some communication with some of those cities and will certainly promote, together with the state, the potential for the Incheon relationship, given the Antarctic significance as an Antarctic gateway.
Any discussion? There's no discussion. I'll put that. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against say no. Carried unanimously. Item 13, Alderman Zuko.
Yes, Lord Mayor, this is a review of the City of Hobart financial hardship policy. Basically, what it's someone second that.
Seconded by Alderman Sexton.
Basically, what it's saying, Lord Mayor, that the General Manager's delegation under Section 22 of the Local Government Act allow the General Manager of the day to continue the remissions and to an amount of up to $2,000. So move.
Deputy Lord Mayor.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. Look, I'm pleased that we are looking at extending this till the 30th of June and having something in place after that as part of our standard and revised financial hardship assistance policy. There has been, well, we're just coming to the end of JobKeeper and there may well be impacts on businesses in the city that we haven't really considered, and having this specific COVID response, I think, has been a really good thing that our city has done. It's probably a fairly bold thing to do. Not all cities I know have done it, but I think it goes to the heart of how we want to see our city go forward in the future. So nobody wants to see businesses collapse, and there have been some help, if you like, which has been from both the state and federal government, which has seen things like the business foreclosures being put off in a way, but all of this will be coming to an end. So this just gives a little bit of wriggle room for some businesses who may just need it to tide them over at this really hard time. And you know, my heart goes out to them, because I think they are really, you know, some businesses have done okay, some businesses have done quite well with COVID, but a lot haven't, and we need our city and our suburbs to be continuing in the same way, so that there can be the right sort of economic stimulus, which this just adds as a bit of a safety net.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, I'll put that. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against say no. Carried unanimously. That brings to an end the open portion of our meeting. Moved by the Deputy Lord Mayor to move into the closed portion, seconded by Councillor Ewan. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against say no.